when I ride my bike, I feel young. Unfortunately, I'm not as young as I would like to be. I'm not gonna tell you how old I am. Let's just say I get discounts. As we get older, a lot of crap happens to us, and almost none of it's good. So how do we fight this aging and make sure that we can still do the things we want to do? Well, there's a number of things that I do now that I didn't used to do. I'm going to tell you what they are, and maybe you have some suggestions as well. Some of this is going to be actually controversial, and also just wait till the end because I have something that will summarize all of this. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm lifting weights, and this is something that, quite frankly, I don't like doing. I just don't want to do it, but it's important. And the reason why is after the age of about 30, we start declining, and then we start accelerating that decline, particularly in muscles and bones. In the muscles, it's called sarcopenia. In the bones, it's called osteopenia. Osteopenia, of course, leads to osteoporosis. And just for the record, there is no sarcoporosis. But there may as well be. So as we age, our muscles start to decline, we get weakness, we lose strength in bones, and especially for cyclists, one of the problems is that cycling is just simply not a weight-bearing sport, and so we're more prone towards this, especially in the upper body. There are some performance benefits, yada, yada, yada. Honestly, I don't notice the performance benefits. In theory, I do, but here's the main problem I see with weightlifting. The soreness that I get interferes with the cycling. So if I lift weights on a Wednesday, then my legs are sore, and it interferes with the fun of cycling on Thursday. And one of the things I notice is as I'm getting older, that soreness lasts a lot longer. If I try to lift weights twice a week, I'm basically losing out. By the way, this little restaurant right here is pretty cool. It's across the street from the Mission, FYI. But here's the deal. I'm not Dylan Johnson. That guy can ride 500 miles a week, lift weights. I don't know how he does that. Well, I know how he does it. He's freaking young. So here's my compromise. What I do is I lift weights once a week for my legs, and I lift weights once a week, occasionally twice for the upper body. And when I say lift weights, I don't actually mean I'm in the gym. I don't join a gym. What I do is, I will do push-ups and pull-ups, compound exercises, and I'll use bands because I find, again, this makes you sound like an old person, but sometimes certain weights will bother my joints. So I find that exercise bands to failure actually gives you a good workout, and it's a lot easier on your joints. Just ask Sly Stallone. The second thing that I'm doing that is very controversial, believe it or not, in the sports medicine world is stretching. Now, let me explain. Now, stretching is a tough nut to crack, and the reason why is because most of the research on stretching shows that it's not very effective for certain things. So when they do research on strength athletes, they find that static stretching prior to weightlifting actually reduces your strength up to 20%. Now, no one is going to want to do a stretching routine that reduces their strength. In most other studies with runners, because we love runners because, you know, they're always injured. So they want to find out, does stretching reduce running injuries? And the answer is no, it doesn't. So this leads people to start to believe that stretching is worthless. And as a doctor of chiropractic, ironically, there are times where stretching is worthless, particularly in the spine. For most people, you don't want increased flexibility of the spine, you want increased stability. You want some adequate mobility, but stability is the key to getting rid of most people's spinal problems. I have other videos on this, but I'm gonna cut to the chase for you. It's basically planks, side planks, bird dogs, Supermans, bridges, and for the most part, that's what most people need. I can get like 95% of people better just with those things. The other percentage may require some type of mobility training, flexibility, that type of thing. Mobility, by the way, is the ability of your muscles to move your body through a range of motion. Flexibility is how far you could push it passively. But when it comes to cycling, things are different. As far as cycling is concerned, it's very difficult to study injuries when it comes to cycling because just because you're flexible, if you hit a rock and fall off your bike, flexibility isn't gonna stop that injury from happening. And to be quite frank, most injuries on a bicycle are chronic in nature, and a good bike fit will solve most problems compared to flexibility. So a young person who's riding a bike really isn't going to benefit from stretching that much from an injury perspective. And also this whole idea that long hamstrings will allow you to have your seat higher and thus you'll be able to have longer cranks and a better pedal stroke. No, 1970s called, it wants its science back. So if the science says that stretching is essentially worthless for most sports, other than 5–10% of people, they've come to the conclusion that if you like doing it and it feels good, you should do it. But what about us? What about old cyclists? Now I'm gonna give you my opinion. Because we're riding in a hunched over position and using limited range of motion, stretching is probably a good idea. But the stretching I would recommend is totally different, and this is what I do. And the great news is it doesn't take a long period of time. You do the Sphinx position, which is a yoga move. You're going to do the doorway stretch for your front of your chest, so you're not hunched over like a gorilla. You're gonna stretch your hip flexors, because everybody loves to stretch their hip flexors, but in this particular case, it's actually worth it. And basically that's it. Maybe sit down. Oh God, Jesus, it stinks like pot around here. Must be in I'm in Ventura, so there you go. Other than that, occasionally hanging from a bar, getting into a deep squat, if you could do those things, that's great. What I find personally with patients is that the older they get, the harder it is to do those things. And that's because of the age-related arthritis that basically everyone gets. So despite the fact that stretching in the research isn't very positive, I find from a cycling perspective, it's useful. What's your opinion? So there's no real controversy over weightlifting at all. I mean, we should all be weightlifting. Stretching, there's quite a bit of controversy, but I'll tell you what, that is nothing compared to nutrition. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna tell you what I do, what works for me. Chances are it's not gonna work for you, but if you thought that politics was polarized, holy crap. You've got the carnivores, and they want you to only eat their way. But then there's people that defect from the carnivore diet and follow Saladino. Well, he eats fruit in addition to meat, but still villainizes vegetables. For some reason, people don't like vegetables. And then you've got Gundry saying that oatmeal is bad for you, that it has no nutritional value. You've got the vegans, you've got the vegetarians, you've got keto, they're eating 70% fat. They're eating bacon and avocado and butter. But here's what works, because we're cyclists, right? I find that if I was gonna classify my diet as something, I would say 80% of the time, I'm trying to eat in the old-fashioned zone style of diet. 70-ish% of my plate will have a bunch of colored vegetables in it and with olive oil. And then the remainder of the plate is the protein, where you have chicken, fish, lean beef, whatever. And you don't eat too much at one particular meal, but you eat 5 times throughout the day. And that seems to work for me. Now, I'm human. Maybe twice a year we get to go to In-N-Out Burger, or I'm really a sucker for, if I have done a long ride, I usually start thinking about Mexican food because I'm in California and I love Mexican food. And so we have a lot of great places here in California. And don't give me crap about Chipotle. But the diet is something that when I was a kid and when I was younger, I used to basically go out on a bike ride with a sleeve of Fig Newtons and Gatorade. I never drink Gatorade anymore. It's just awful for your teeth, I feel. And you need more stuff than just Fig Newton. So on a ride, I will eat various food. You could watch all my rides and see what I eat. It's nothing special, but this fear that most people have about carbohydrates is very unfounded if you're gonna do endurance events. If you're gonna be out for longer than an hour of a workout, you're gonna need some carbohydrates. And when I say carbohydrates, I don't mean donuts and cookies and stuff like that. Although sometimes, can't think of the last, I'm not a donut guy, but I do like cookies. But there's nothing wrong with that if you're out for 2, 3, 4, 5 hours riding a bike. Now the last part of the equation is something that's intangible, that nobody talks about. And if you watch all these longevity experts, they have recommendations like wake up at 4 in the morning, get sunshine, do a cold plunge, then a sauna, then you gotta weight train, then you gotta do your VO2 max, zone 2 training, meditate, and it just gets exhausting. And when you start to add up everything and you wanna be like David Goggins or something like that, you realize that there's no time for a job. So how does this play into what I'm talking about now? Well, the answer is that it's supposed to be fun. I mean, holy crap, I'm riding my bike. Look where I'm riding. This is awesome. Why are we worrying about what zone we're in? Or if I have to do my 4-minute intervals or 2-minute intervals, weight train, stretch, where's the fun? Now, some people love that part, and that's cool. But for me, just getting out and just riding, you're improving 90% of that anyway. So what I'm finding is, as I'm getting older, yeah, I need to weight train. Stretching, I find beneficial. Nutrition, I find that I just can't eat the way I did when I was 20, and I'd rather feel good most of the time. But I'm not gonna deprive myself of stuff. But most importantly, I'm just out here having fun. Because who wouldn't have fun here in Southern California?